Hi everyone, Rosie Girl here with you today for a very special audio video, and welcome to you. When I started doing the audio videos, I guess it was about 3 years ago perhaps I did my first one. I never imagined that it would turn into the large, genre that it is today, with, some videos having over 100,000 views and many with 80,000, 50,000. I am, of course, very flattered by the people watching my videos. And of course, I have one of the most unusual features of any home in the United States, and that is perhaps one of the, if not the largest displayed vintage audio collection in the United States, or at least in California, that I've ever seen on YouTube before. And I'm standing in front of it now, and it gives you some idea of just how large the wall of sound is. It runs from floor to ceiling, literally. And what I want to talk about today is the construction method that was used to build this wall of sound. When I first started looking into ways that I could display my vintage audio collection, and this is only half of them. Over to my right that you can see, I have what's called the wall of amplitude. It's 5 shelves that have some of the classic H. Scott Dynacos and a few other Marantz amplifiers there that, they're on display. Discuss the wall of sound, and in addition, I have about 50 more units that aren't even on display here in the on the wall of sound. But I want to talk today about the construction method because, as I say, when I first went to look at displaying my vintage audio collection, I was very dissatisfied with the quality and availability of the units that were there for display. Now there's individual cabinets that have 19-inch rack sizes that your components will fit in well. They have a glass door, but it's designed for maybe people that have 8 units. Well, what are you going to do when you have about 35 units, 35 units that you want to display? You're way beyond that kind of thing. And plus the prices were ridiculous for those type of units. Hence, I knew I had to design my own setup, and with the help of my partner, over a weekend, we were able to build it. Now, the important thing to remember about this wall of sound is there's a lot of weight here. Some of these units, this big Kenwood Model 9GX itself weighs about 60 pounds. It's a gigantic receiver. The combined weight, if you take about 50 pounds, 40 pounds per unit here, you're talking about a lot of additional weight on the floor, plus the shelving unit itself. What you have to be prepared for, if you're going to do a floor to ceiling unit like this with the display, you're going to have to figure out how you want to reinforce the floor underneath of that. I don't know what the load bearing capability of the floors, but I don't want to test it. I've had probably 25 sheets of sheetrock on the floor one time when I was doing the renovation work here. It's a lot of weight there on the floor in the center. I never had an issue. But on the other side of the wall here, I have a refrigerator. I have a very large Fisher Paykel range. I have cabinets, granite countertops. There's a lot of weight that's borne underneath of this wall structure over here on 4x4 posts below the flooring here in earthquake country. So what I ended up doing, and you can, I'll leave the links to these videos below, and you'll see little cards appear above that you can click on. You'll see how I added extra support by putting floor jacks and additional posts underneath of the floor to give some more load bearing ability. You need to have that peace of mind. This, like I said, this is a very, very heavy structure when it's fully loaded. Now, as far as construction is concerned, I knew I wanted a floor to ceiling unit because that would give me stability in earthquake country. And by having threaded rods, and these are actually 6-foot sections of threaded rods, and I went to a local machine shop where I have a friend of mine that actually took some other pieces of threaded rod and cut them for an additional size to go above, and I used what's called coupling nuts. Here, they're actually thread on. This is 3/4 inch threaded rod, galvanized, and I was able to just use coupling nuts to have the length of threaded rod I needed. Now between that, to raise and lower the shelves, each unit, and you can see the links below of how we built the shelf. We would start by fabricating a base unit that would sit on the floor using composition board, really good composition board, good quality composition board, and some 2x4s for the base part of the unit. And then we would put the threaded rod through the bottom of the base units and run it up to we would build start building and adding shelves as we went. We started with one shelf unit on the side here, and then gradually we built the other shelf unit and brought that inside and started adding shelves. We cut 4 holes, 4 corners in each of the shelves so that the threaded rods could go through. And then we used the nuts to adjust the level up and down with the washers. And at the end, I'll give you a close-up view and examination of that. By the time it got to this level, we knew we were going to have a TV set here in our home entertainment center, so we could start bridging at this point by cutting our pieces of, I think this has turned out being 18-inch wide material, 18-inch by 3/4 material here. We could start putting a bridge between these 2 units and then add the nuts to it and continue up the threaded rod and continue adding shelving as we went. Now, when we got to the top of the unit, we were able to put on a top piece, just like the bottom piece. It was a piece that had 2x4s on the top of it, then the wooden 18-inch boards with 4 holes cut in for the threaded rod to go up with the nuts. And then once we put the last shelf on, we were able to just use the nuts to raise up that top shelf to make really tight contact with the ceiling. There's no anchors, there's no screws, there's no fastenings holding this unit in. It's compression, or actually not compression, but it's expansion. It's actually holding this into place, and it is extremely solid. I ended up putting little cups that you use on the bottom of chairs and stuff to keep floors from being scratched, putting them in front of the individual units to make sure it was earthquake proof. Because as I'm standing here looking at you, I'm facing east, and behind me is the west, and if we're going to have an earthquake, it's either going to come from the west to the east or the east to the west. In any case, it's going to ripple under the floor here, come forward, and if it's a big enough shock wave, it would take the units and push them back and forth, and maybe some of them would slide off. And I have units here that are $1,500. Some of these, well, the Fisher 800Bs with the walnut cases. I would be heartbroken if these were damaged or destroyed in an earthquake. So this gives me an additional level of a feeling of security where I can sleep at night, that this is protected. So I want to bring you in now and show you some of the details of the construction methods that were used. Okay, I think you'll agree though when you see me, and of course I'm not a big person, but you can get an idea of the epic scale of the wall of sound here. So come on in now, let's take a look at some of the close-up construction details. we come in close, you'll be able to see the construction detail down on the floor. You can see the 2x4 framing, and I screwed down onto that 2x4 the 3/4 inch by 18 inch wide composition board. And as I added a level, I cut each piece of the board and then added a washer on the bottom side and also on the top side. And the beauty of that configuration is just turning these screws allowed me to level or actually adjust the whole unit. If I had a unit that was a little larger, like the Kenwood, the Model 9 GX, it's a huge unit. I could actually expand the size of that shelf with a little more height. And if I had some that are a little smaller, I could adjust the levels too. But the trick was having the threaded rod start on the floor, and remember, nothing is screwed into the floor at all, and then gradually coming up, adding a level, adding a level, adding a level, and trying to get level with the bubble level by level. And then, as I say, when we got to the center section here, we just went ahead and using a longer board here, a longer piece, and this is probably a 4 foot piece here. Now there's a lot of weight on these units, and you see there's no bowing or flexing at all, because I took these 2x2s and I went underneath on one towards each side of the board and added some reinforcement there. Yes, it took a little longer to do, but you're never going to have to worry. If you build it that way, you're never going to have to worry about having that sag in the middle. You like things to look well made and well constructed, and because of those 2x2s, it really serves the purpose of keeping that really strong and really solid. And I have no worries about weight whatsoever, but threaded rod was definitely the key. By the time we got to the top and we had added our different units, it was time to add the top pieces. And you can see up there that we have composition board, and on the top we have our 2x4s, and we actually were able to screw those washers upward until it made very solid contact with the ceiling, and tighten that so that this unit would absolutely stay put. Okay, and this also shows you in front of the Sansui, the 1000A here, you can see the rubber cups that I was talking about that we use to keep the unit on the wall of sound in the event of an earthquake. This has stood well for us. It stood the test of time. It's been very functional. I'll show you in the back here that I've added power strips up and down the wall. You can see one there. Okay, and I have a lot of power ports behind here, behind the wall. So I have plenty of capacity to plug in here, and I also have plenty of breaker size too to be able to accommodate. So, you know, when the lights are all turned off here, I will show you now, and you begin to put these units on, you can imagine the beauty when the whole wall is just lit up with this type of display. It's going to be, well, it's going to be phenomenal, and it's an eye catcher. And for you guys out there, it's probably a real chick magnet too. Okay, all right. That details the construction methods that we used, and it's held up well. I want to thank you so much for being along today, as I really took time to detail the construction of what I call, and affectionately known to many people in the YouTube community now, as my wonderful wall of sound. You may say, what is your ultimate dream, Rosie, in building that wall of sound? My ultimate dream, and I've built electrical surplus into these walls and some of these, a lot of these outlets. I've built enough surplus capacity and breakers and things that I could theoretically turn on every one of these units, have them beautifully lit up, and then turn off the lights and it would be probably the most mind-blowing display in the history of audio to have all of these units on and then having one unit act as the player for some music. I think it would be epic and it would be a show of shows. But for now, you've seen the construction of this wall of sound, and I still have a long way to go. Probably only 60% of these units have been restored. They're labors of love. They're things that I enjoy taking my time to do well and to do a good job on, and not to rush. You know, little by little we'll get there at the end. But in the meantime, I so hope that you've enjoyed this upload detailing the construction of the wall of sound. If you enjoyed it, please give me a share on the video. Thumbs up would be awesome, and leave some nice comments down below. And gee, I hope you're subscribed, because every week we're doing vintage audio spotlights where we're taking an individual unit and going in detail on that and inside under the hood. And also we're doing the restoration and the vintage audio listening experiences too. 3 different subcategories of audio here on the Rosie O'Kelly channel. Thanks so much for being along today, everyone, and I really hope you enjoyed visiting. Have a wonderful day.